For 2023, the standout attraction, no pun intended, had to be Pipeline the Surf Coaster at SeaWorld Orlando. This model is the spiritual successor to the original stand-up coaster. Overall, Pipeline has improved on the stand-up model in every way. It features a more comfortable restraint harness system, the layout is better suited for this style of coaster, and using a launch instead of a lift is always a plus in my book. Of course, being the first coaster model, there are a couple bugs to work out, but I would say any issues with this model pales in comparison with the problems that I have with the old stand-up coasters. Now, since I consider Pipeline the Surf Coaster to be a success, the next two questions would be when and where will we see another one built? Well, in this video I plan to tackle these two questions and hopefully will provide you with some solid answers. Before we get into the meat of this video, do me a favor by clicking on the like button to help with the YouTube algorithm, and also if you're new to my channel, love everything roller coasters and theme parks, be sure to subscribe. Before we discuss where we could see this roller coaster show up next, let's discuss how long we'll have to wait for it to be built. Well, looking over past models by B&M, their wing coaster model, the first one opened in 2011 and was immediately followed by more the following year. This is all pre-COVID and the market has changed since then. Projects have delayed, budgets slashed, you know the drill, so expecting another surf coaster that soon seems unreasonable, especially since the stand-up feature was kept under wraps until a few months before opening. I think a more suitable trend to look at would be the dive coaster. The first one opened in 1998, and the second one didn't show up until 2000. From there, it was a 5-year gap until we saw another dive coaster get built. This model took a good 15 years until it really caught fire. If we correlate this data over to the surf coaster model, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that we won't see another coaster of this type for another 3 to 5 years. Okay, so who will be the next in line to build a surf coaster? Since Pipeline is a part of the SeaWorld chain and they love to build the same types of attractions at their sister parks, I wouldn't be surprised if a SeaWorld or Busch Gardens property takes on the surf coaster. Since Busch Gardens Tampa is about 1 hour away from Orlando, I think that we can safely eliminate that park from this list of possibilities. Busch Gardens Williamsburg could be a contender, but when we look over their lineup, I see 4 launching roller coasters. Not to say that they would be shy of adding a 5th, but I really don't think Williamsburg is the best fit for a new model. The next park I think would be a solid contender is SeaWorld San Diego. Being so close to the Pacific Ocean, another surf-themed roller coaster would fit in nicely at this park. Now, the biggest challenge would be the ordinances in this area. I believe SeaWorld is not allowed to build above the tree height on one half of their property. The other issue is land availability. I have no idea how much land they have to work with, so this park could get eliminated on those 2 factors alone. The final park in the SeaWorld chain, the one that I think is most likely, SeaWorld San Antonio. This park has a lot of land to work with, and with Six Flags Fiesta Texas being so close, a unique coaster like Pipeline would be something to entice the local crowd. If we were to journey outside of SeaWorld, the next biggest amusement park chain that loves to work with B&M is Cedar Fair. Of course, we all know of their plans to merge with Six Flags. This is all shaping up to close sometime mid-spring to summer of 2024, but I don't think this merger will affect the relationship they have with B&M. The CEO of Cedar Fair will become the new CEO of Six Flags, so I expect more of Cedar Fair mentality to take the lead. Their first park in their chain that is most likely to receive a new B&M would be Kings Island. The park has a ton of land to work with, including the old spot where Vortex used to be. This would be something very unique to the park and the entire state at that, as Cedar Point no longer has a stand-up roller coaster model. Speaking of Cedar Point, the park that has practically everything in the B&M catalog could receive a surf coaster model as well, but I think this is less likely. Now, Cedar Point loves to build record-breaking roller coasters, so building a record-breaking surf coaster would be relatively easy since it's a new model, but another launching roller coaster for Cedar Point doesn't seem like the best fit. But I could be wrong though. Not to say that the next surf coaster has to be a launching coaster, because it doesn't, but since the manufacturer built the first one as a launch coaster, and they're becoming more keen to building more launch coasters, which is something that B&M wasn't really doing a few years ago, I'm going to stick to only launch coasters for my speculations. King's Dominion would also be another park to consider, but with the leaked plans of a launching wing coaster in the works, I think we can rule them out for now. Six Flags New England desperately needs a new roller coaster, a launching roller coaster at that, and what better idea than a surf coaster? Well, as much as I'd love to see this roller coaster make its way up north, I have my doubts that Six Flags would put in a surf coaster at their New England property. If we jump over to the West Coast, we have a couple more parks to talk about. First, there is Six Flags Magic Mountain, but I just don't think a surf coaster is the right fit for this park. Next is Knott's Berry Farm. I could see this model coming here, but their biggest challenge is land. There was at one time a rumor of a Giga and/or Hypercoaster by B&M to come to this property, but I think those plans have been scrapped altogether. Personally, I would love to see another Hypercoaster or their first Giga Coaster on the West Coast, but maybe a surf coaster would make a decent alternative. Knott's does have their boardwalk section of the park, but since they already have one coaster, maybe arguably two roller coasters themed to surfing, building yet another surfing-themed roller coaster seems very redundant. With that said though, even though it's in its name, I don't think surfing has to be the main theme for this coaster. The train design is keen to go with surfing, but you could morph it into other extreme sports like skateboarding, kneeboarding, wakeboarding, snowboarding. You kind of get the picture. So yeah, you don't have to stick with surfing for this roller coaster design. Finally, let's talk about Herschend. They have 3 properties where I could see this attraction going. Dollywood is a rapidly expanding park, but I don't think a surf coaster is the answer for their property. I think a Hyper or Giga Coaster would be the better fit, but anyways, the same could also be said of Silver Dollar City. No, my wild card is going to be Kentucky Kingdom. Ever since Herschend took over this park a couple years ago, it's kind of been in a holding pattern. The park even tore out a roller coaster last year, T3, so they are in desperate need of another roller coaster. The park's closest competition is Holiday World, and since that park has a launching wing coaster, building a launching stand-up coaster doesn't seem so crazy. It would be different and grab the attention of the local market. Now, do I have my doubts that this idea would happen? Yes, I just don't think Herschend plans to drop this much capital into a property that they lease and not own. So for now, the park that I'm putting my bet on is SeaWorld San Antonio. They have the most land to work with, they're in the same family, and we know that SeaWorld is not afraid to drop a decent chunk of change on a new project. If their launching log flume doesn't pan out, which as of lately it's not looking the best, SeaWorld San Antonio is going to have to step it up with their next project. And what better way of winning the hearts of the locals and season pass members than building a brand new launching stand-up roller coaster? Well, that's all I have for today. What do you think of the surf coaster model, and who will be next in line to get one? Tell me all about it in the comments below. Until next time, this is X Screen Thrills.